Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hotline League. Wow, we thought there was not going to be much to talk about on this episode, especially because Mark and I did this less than a week ago while he was traveling, and yet here we are with a whole lot to talk about, courtesy of several leaks, rumors, and announcements that hit in the past, I would say, 48 hours or so. But first, before we get to that, let me introduce my constant co-host, Mark Zimmerman. How's it going, Mark, and welcome back to the States.
I'm actually still in Portugal. I just imported my room, got all the stuff and put it behind me. I flew in yesterday. It was like 20, or well, with the time change, I actually don't know how long it was. It was like at least over 12 hours of flying. I smelled like shit. I got a bunch of pimples. I got 2 pimples. I'm pretty sure it's just from sitting in my greasy clothes from flying. Yeah. I'm jet lagged. And I watched a shitload of movies. That's what I did.
Did you get to do anything cool while you were there?
In Portugal?
Yeah.
I saw the Benagil Caves, I guess would probably be the coolest thing I did. Maybe.
You just
went
go
wine
to
tasting.
Portugal for a vacation, or?
Yeah, my family was there, and so I don't see them that often. I was like, fuck it,
Nice.
I'll go. So I went.
Wow. So much.
Not much of a traveler.
Excitement. Are you traveling again anytime soon, Mark?
I don't know. We'll find out soon.
I think it's so funny that like this event starts in a week or so, and we can't discuss whether or not we have to do.
I'll be on a plane by the end of the week. If I'll be flying across to the other side of the world in a week. I'm not allowed to say.
Yes. Wouldn't it be crazy if we have this one episode where you're at home and then we have to figure out a way for you to do this
it all over again?
Yeah.
That would be crazy.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll find out. From what I can tell, everyone is trying to dodge MSI as much as possible. So I'm sure that they've gotten desperate enough that they'll need you.
Yeah, none of the cool kids are going anymore.
Yeah,
bringing
exactly.
The shitters.
Yes, exactly. Well, let's introduce our guest for the night, which is Revenge. How's it going, Revenge?
Hello. Good.
How excited are you to be playing with Ignore and Lost this year?
Oh, Ignar and Lost. Well, Ignar has been announced, so that's pretty cool.
I'm just going to ask you and Mark. This whole show will just do nothing but questions about if Mark is casting or working at MSI and what the Immortals roster looks like, and then we'll just see how much we can get out of you before the end of it, both of you guys.
Yeah.
No, okay, so Ignar's been announced. Let's talk a little bit about the Ignar announcement. Were you during the offseason, I interviewed you and some of the other Immortals folks, and you were kind of positioned as like the guy building the roster, and like a lot of this was your vision. So I'm curious if you're still involved in that way, and if so, if Ignar was part of that vision.
Yeah, I won't go too into detail, but I think in the last offseason, I definitely had a part in constructing the roster with Jordan, and it was definitely more stressful in the last offseason because our GM at that time left the org at a kind of tough time, and I don't think we got. Well, I don't know how to say this, I guess, but I definitely always wanted to play with Ignar. I think he's someone that, since I've been on FlyQuest with him, and he's like a really, really good player, of course. So this offseason, when I guess we went about some of our changes, once I found out that we had an open import slot, I definitely wanted to play with Ignar.
Okay. Well, it's cool to see that you've had that. I think Power of Evil is even more of a fan, given that he's been posting memes about the two of them being reunited and all that stuff. So I'm sure that's
yeah, that's.
For him.
I mean, Huhi, Ignar. I was able to watch how they played together when I was in Academy on FlyQuest, because I watched like all their scrims, obviously a lot of their LCS games as well, and I mean, it's pretty insane. They're like mid support synergy. I guess like mid support and jungle synergy as a 3 is really important. I think it's not something that teams, or I guess like maybe like on the analyst side, people like kind of focus on enough as like a trio, but it's a really important trio. And I think I think just having two of the three pieces in that trio be really strong together in their synergy is like always insane. And then that kind of like helps the jungler or whoever the third piece is to just kind of mesh really well with them. So.
So one question I have about these roster changes, and something I always like to ask like the teams, is like, what is the goal for the team now? Because you know, like people always say, like, oh, is it development rosters? Are trying to make worlds? Is it just trying to acquire pieces that they think will lead to worlds in the future soon? You know, like what? Obviously, you guys finished your 9th last split, or
Yeah, I like bought it 9th or 10th. Don't remind me, but yeah.
I honestly have to go look. I don't remember. I'm not trying. That wasn't trying to flame. I actually forgot how the season ended. But either way,
you guys didn't get as much heat because TSM was there. They drew all the aggro, so you guys were able to
people
just
forgot.
skirt by.
Technically tied, but I think you lost the head-to-head with TSM or something. But so like obviously 10th is not the goal, but like what is the sight set for this team? Like what does a successful summer look like for Immortals? Even, you know, you haven't announced all the changes yet, but like what is it you guys trying to do?
I mean, I've heard that question asked a lot in the sense of like an org POV or kind of like people's expectations versus what's going to happen. But I think if you ask any player this and they don't say Worlds, like even CLG's roster, then I don't think any of those players should be playing in LCS. Like I think every player's goal should be pushing themselves to be a world-class player or make it to Worlds and be the best in their region. So that's of course my goal and the expectation that I'm going to set for myself. And I'm pretty sure every player on my team also has that expectation. I think like, yeah, even if it sounds like, you know, if people want to look from the outside and think that's like a delusional answer or whatever, it's just like the truth. Like I honestly can't say like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be happy with top 7 or top 6 or something like.
We want to limp into playoffs.
Yeah, like I don't think any player should ever answer like that, unless they're just there to steal paychecks, I guess. Which then it's like whatever, you know. But like for me, I just want to like at least my expectation with this roster is that we can make worlds. You know, I don't know if I know I've learned that orgs have certain expectations based on certain spending. I know that's a thing that I've learned in this last year, but yeah, I'm pretty sure everyone on our roster has like so far at least has definitely the hunger to go to worlds. So
yeah, that's a good answer. I like that.
Well, I'm sure we'll have more people calling to talk about the Immortal stuff as well, but there's a lot to talk about. So one, we've gotten more information on MSI. I saw a couple people asking me this in the chat. I am not going to MSI in person. They are basically what they are doing right now is they're offering media the ability to go sit in the audience and have access to a workroom. But if you go, all of your access is still through Zoom. Like all your interviews and stuff will still be through Zoom. So there's not really a point for the type of content that I create in going there in person. And there's obviously a lot of restrictions and stuff. So I'll be doing it online. But to answer that question, also, we have a whole lot of information. So Revenge clearly can't talk about the report from Upcomer that Immortals is going to acquire Lost, but Mark and I can. We have other changes that have been announced, other information, including Summit being released, as well as Winsome and Isles from Cloud9. That was just a short time ago. From MVP to free agent, which I think there's a ton to talk about along that. I have a lot of things to say, so I'm sure we'll get a call about that. KI Duo is also leaving TSM. They had another change that they announced.
Yeah, Maple was not announced, but was heavily implied. Yes. There's also been rumors about, I think it's Mia. I don't know if it's MIA or Mia, but him as well as Bo potentially. But I think the Bo rumor's dead. But there's been a couple like things swirling around.
Your son moving to inactive roster as well.
Oh, and Jensen is supposedly joining C9.
Yeah. So on the C9 front, I think we have the unannounced roster is supposed to be Fudge back to top, and then Blabber, and Jensen 2 mid, and then Berserker and Sven playing support. So that is the supposed C9 roster. It's the one I've heard. It's the one that's also been reported. So I feel pretty confident in that, but who knows? They change their stuff last minute sometimes. I think the Isles departure is kind of surprising because he was potentially going to play for them at the start of this year before stuff got changed. So maybe they decided to have I don't know. The Sven stuff just seems like a better situation. Trying to think if there's anything else. There's been just like a scattering of different stuff as well. I'm curious what happens to Golden Guardians because we've heard that Lost is leaving to go to a team. Who knows which one, right? Revenge. And then also there's, I don't know. I think it'll just be fascinating to see because they also I think will have some pretty big changes.
We're definitely not done with the roster moves, but we already have a lot to talk about. Like yes. Golden Guardians definitely has more with at least who they're going to pick up, and then if some of the rumblings that I had heard otherwise, they might have some other stuff.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yes.
And
so
who knows about this Biofrost frowny face tweet? It could be.
Yeah.
He might
I
just
don't know if that is related
know.
to the most recent political news, but it's very unlike a pro player to comment on political news. So I feel like there's something happening there. I had not heard any rumors of him leaving Dig. So, Revenge, have you heard any rumors of changes?
Fake God Fake God got released, right? So it could be related to that news. Maybe they didn't get the top they wanted. Maybe they want Summit, and Summit said no. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've heard a lot of rumblings, I guess.
What have you? Link them. Why not?
Would you be surprised, Revenge, if Biofrost is not playing for Dignitas at the start of summer?
I would be surprised.
Okay.
I actually, that's one thing I didn't hear.
Okay. I did not hear
just,
that either.
Like,
so
just think about it. I mean, like if you think logistically, like they're probably keeping River. They got rid of Fake God, and NA tops are not that good, so they probably want to import an NA top, or they probably want to import a top laner, and that'll be 2 imports. So who would they replace Biofrost with? That's an NA support.
I did hear that River was like on the soft market, I guess is maybe how to put it, right? Like his contract, they're entertaining conversations. It's not a situation where they're actively like looking for somebody, but that there's the potential that River could end up on another team if they had somebody come to them.
I think that was more like them maybe they were trying to flip him. Like, hey, he looks good, right? Who wants him?
Yeah,
Give me $1 million, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I won't say too much. I just know Dig is like, I don't know. They seemed a little all over the place. That's all.
They seem like the kind of org that will do like literally anything. Like they're down for whatever.
So,
whatever's gonna make them I'm down.
We're just here for a good time, guys. Okay. Anybody want to swap some players? Anybody want to move some stuff around?
We're here for a good time and not trying to lose money. Here
we go.
Yeah. I don't really know what's going on with Dig, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't hear anything about Biofrost. I'll just say that though.
Okay.
I would actually be. I thought he had a good split too. So.
Yeah. I hadn't heard anything either, so that's why I think the tweet is very interesting. So I'm curious if that means that like maybe River did end up someplace else, or some maybe that he said about something related to the roster. We'll talk more as the show goes on. I think that's it. Is there anything else that we are missing? Twitch chat, Mark, Revenge. Anything that we haven't talked about? I think that's everything. So we can start to get into calls. Mark, do you want to explain how the show works?
There's one more thing.
Oh,
I just thought of this. It's just a meme. Everyone's talking about NA talent, and they're saying like, "Oh, JoJo and Danny," and they're listing all these names of NA talent. How come no one ever brings up Revenge when we're talking about NA talent? Huh? This guy's crushing it in top lane.
I have to win finals. LCS.
I think it helps a lot when you join, and in your first split you go to MSI.
Yeah.
Where's your former MVP LEC jungler? That's what you need.
I think I actually like that the EG staff has actually talked about their NA talent, but at the same time they're acknowledging that it's a lot more. Like their structure, the fact that there's somebody like Impact and even like the imports inspired surrounding them, as well as like such a strong player like Vulcan on the roster, like that core of 3 is insanely strong, and I'm sure you could slot in a lot of players in AD and mid that would perform well with that team with that core, but that doesn't mean to take away from Danny and Jojo, but it's just like the EG staff acknowledges that, and I think that it's cool to me that Jojo and Danny have been able to like actually grow with this roster. Like you could see from their regular season to now how much they've improved, so that's cool to me, and I'm glad that at least EG staff isn't being like full on delusion like some of the community where it's like like just get every single NA player now, fuck all imports and stuff. It's like that's not really smart.
Yeah, there's a balance.
Yeah, I think that's not really smart. Some of the things I've seen are definitely some really shit takes. Like oh my gosh, like 100 Thieves and TL's roster are so bad because they don't have like a single NA player and stuff, and it's like that's not the take that we should have now because EG beat them, It should be like lifting up EG more, right? And the fact that like NA, you can bring up talent, whether it's NA or even younger talent from other regions, right? It's just bringing up talent in general requires like a method.
Here's the counterpoint, Revenge.
Yeah.
The MVP player of this split is now going back to Korea. This tweet just came out 1 minute ago from Summit. Quote, even though it was only a short time, I'd like to say thank you to my team members and coaches. Especially I want to thank our management for being considerate and taking good care of the Korean players even though we didn't speak good English. I'm going back to Korea now, but I will keep on cheering Cloud9 and Berserker. I hope to meet Cloud9 in a good match in the future. Thank you. So there you guys go. This is where the LCS has gotten you. It's gotten you to the point where a player comes over.
Going back to Korea now?
Yes.
For like vacation or like playing there?
No. It's gotten to the point now where LCS is so fucking ridiculous. We've jumped the shark to the point where we bring a player over, we run them, they get MVP, and then we send them back to Korea after one split. That is where we've gotten. Folks, when I talk about brand building, when I talk about player retention, when I talk about turnover in this league and how I really do think that viewership is intrinsically linked to our ability to retain talent and build storylines around players and make people care about players, this is the shit I am talking about.
Travis, you don't know what you're talking about. This is great for the league. You know what the problem was last year with Perks and Alfari and Sword Art? They stayed too fucking long. Did we
had
need
them a whole
them?
two splits.
Yeah, 2 splits. 2 splits is a joke. 1 split's the new meta. You know what? Next split, I don't even want anyone to stay on their team longer than 3 weeks. Blow up all 10 rosters after 3 weeks and shuffle them around.
I was gonna wait till the call about Summit to talk about this stuff, but because the news is breaking right now, I want to tell an anecdote. Back in 2017 when I was at Yahoo, I went to South by Southwest in Austin, and I met a very lovely couple there who were League fans, and they were nice enough to invite me out to dinner, and I went out to dinner with them, and they were just great. And I've actually stayed in touch with them where when I go back to Austin to talk to Dell or to do South by Southwest or something, I meet up with them. I was in Austin 2 weeks ago for a wedding. I met up with them, and I asked them, hey, are you guys still following League? And they're like, no, we stopped watching. And I said, why was that? And they said, well, it's just frustrating because you become fans of these players, and then the players all leave, or they leave and then they come back, or they don't stay on the same team. So the team that you're rooting for no longer one year now they've lost all their players. They called out explicitly FlyQuest that year that FlyQuest went to Worlds, and then the 5 players on it all dispersed and went different places. And this is exactly what I am talking about whenever I say this stuff. And I do think one argument for NA talent is that you just are way less likely to get this kind of boomerang situation where you have a player come over here, do this stuff, and then go someplace else. So we'll talk more about what I've heard specifically about the Summit stuff whenever we get to a call about it. I don't want to take up the entire first half of the show just going over Summit stuff, but I've heard some interesting things. So we will get into that in just a second. Mark, I see you have not pulled a single person into the waiting room.
Was I supposed to?
Well, normally you do by this point in time. Do you want to explain how the show works?
Sure. Never seen the show before. It's a live call-in show, which means you'll be able to come on air and talk with us. Go ahead and join the Discord link that I am spamming in Twitch chat right now. When you get here, go ahead and join Pleb Calls or Pleb Calls 2 voice channels. Mute your microphone when you get in. Up above, there'll be the Pleb Topics text channel. That's where you'll go and put your take. Type in whatever you want to say, whatever roster rumors you want to talk about. I don't think we really want to cover Summer Split or MSI. We'll probably try and keep it pretty focused on roster stuff as well as Immortals / Revenge stuff. So if there's anything about Spring Split you want to ask them about, we can do that. If I like your take, I'll pull you into the waiting room where you'll hang out until it's your time to come on air. We'll do a quick mic check, and then you'll be on to talk.
And if you are a sub, thank you for being a sub first off. We are at 997 subs, so we're 3 away from 1,000 if anybody feels like subbing. But make sure that you sync your Twitch account with your Discord so that you can get access to the subtopics channel where you can put your take. It moves a little slower in there. It doesn't guarantee you coming on, but it is a cool way to do that. While Mark is pulling folks into the chat. Oh, by the way, thank you everybody who's throwing a bunch of subs. I see that right now. While Mark is pulling folks into the waiting room, Revenge. What do you think of Summit leaving the region, especially because you were playing against him? Obviously, the split.
I mean, it's a little disappointing because I thought he was one of the stronger laners, and I wish in a way he had a good playoffs performance too, and he stayed, and just because of the practice I would get playing against him in a way. But I have heard a lot of things, reasons why I guess it didn't work out with him and stuff. So I guess I understand it a bit now, and I think from the outside looking in, it does seem a bit difficult. But I think in general, to me, it just kind of proves that I think importing players is not just easy. Even though Summit had a great performance, your performance and what you're doing outside of the game are two different things, and eventually your happiness outside of the game will actually matter. It's like LCS is kind of a marathon, at least the way you should look at it. Like a split is a marathon, and by the end of it, you can kind of burn out or just not be yourself, right? And I think that was definitely the case with Summit, from what I saw, and I just think maybe NA didn't work out for him, and I think. Not to say like it's like C9's fault or C9 failed. I think it's like every person's different. I'm sure C9 has like a okay environment for Korean players, or just imports in general. But it's just not for everyone, Like it's not easy just going to another country and just living there and playing there and making it your life while you're doing something super stressful. Like LCS is very stressful, So I think people forget that too.
Yeah. No, I'm sure we'll talk more about it over the course of this. Is there any part of you that blames Raz for what has happened here?
Honestly, Raz, if you really, really, really go into details about everything, it somehow ends up being Raz's fault. If you really think about it, maybe Summit saw him twerking and just said, "Hey, like this is not for me, and I have to leave. I have to go back to Korea."
That's absolutely the oh my god. He was like,
if you really go into detail,
he's like, this circus of a region is.
It could somehow be Raz's fault.
Get me
really
out of here.
That's actually a great take.
I just noticed Raz is in the chat. I'm sorry, Raz. We didn't see you here, so apologies for. Yeah. All right.
He was like, I could win spring, but then I'll be stuck here, so I need to int my ass off at the end of the year so that C9 releases me from my contract. Otherwise, I'll be stuck seeing Raz twerk.
Yeah. Int his ass off so he can avoid seeing Raz's ass, I think. Mark, you want to grab the first caller?
Sure.
All right. Off Mark goes. Thank you to... we got a ton of subs. Thanks, everybody. DJ Morali, Wooden Post, Photo LOL, John Zoidberg for giving out subs. There were a bunch of people beforehand. I got you guys shouted out, but T-Bone. Simon, thank you for the 2 years. Avura, America Vespucci, 900267, Smoke Dog, Shiny Froakie for 50 months. Holy crap. Salaskalig, Duke by Fall. Portillo is here to hear us talk about C9. Zamelkai, Team Hezi, Cyber Healer, and Prince. Okay, so we should have Mark here in just a second. And we'll shout out more of those. I saw some additional subs in just a second. But we're waiting on Mark to return. And I will be converting to a MSI schedule soon. So that'll be very fun. I'm excited for that. We can all...
Korea schedule.
Yeah. Dude, I'm so excited for Worlds this year. It's like the first time in so long that I won't have to like somewhat dread an international event because of what it will do to me brain-wise. Okay.
Hello.
Wizard is here. Wizard, where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm calling from Gulfport, Mississippi.
Mississippi. What do you want to talk about on the show?
I wanted to say, here, I'll read my take. I said Winsome was not an LCS-ready product, and Summit was a poor teammate after LS's departure. As a result, C9 making roster moves at those 2/3 positions is the smartest thing they could have done. They added the best top laner from 2021, the best performing NA mid laner at Worlds last year, and a Core JJ Afromu-esque ADC to support role swap in Sven. I think they're going to win Summer Split, and Jensen Fudge will be first team All-Pro, and I don't think that vote will be close.
Jensen
They'll
will
also
be
get out
first
of
team
groups.
All-Pro?
I think Jensen will be first team All-Pro.
Why not MVP?
Why not MVP? I think that Danny has way too much momentum going into Summer Split, and if he continues to perform well and maybe ups his laning, that his fan base will make that very difficult.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I do also think that they'll be able to, all the way going forward to groups, if specifically if Sven works at support, I believe they'll get out of groups and they'll be set up for a possible deep run with how each one of their, all 5 positions seem set up for international success.
I
Also,
really
I was
love
the
that.
roster retention guy, and I still don't think it's a problem, even between splits.
I love that Raz in the chat was like, "This is a lot to unpack," and then you continued on with a Worlds prediction, which is very funny.
Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
It's the quintessential Hotline League take where you start with something and then you just go till the end of the year.
No, exactly. It is. There is no point in the year where we do not get a Worlds prediction built in to the answer at some point.
It's like week 4 spring split. Like, yeah, they had a really rough week 3, but I think they'll bounce back, do well in playoffs, miss MSI, then get top 3 in summer and get quarterfinals. Like,
exactly.
I just pulled you for the fact that we don't need to panic.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Let's back up a little bit. We'll save the World's takes for maybe sometime starting in July or August, but let's talk a bit about the Cloud9 conversation here.
So here's what I'll say. I have another take pulled more about the managerial side, about like the kind of collapse of the roster, and so maybe we can save that discussion for later.
So this is more about the roster changes specifically.
Yeah, for like summer, Revenge. How do you feel about this roster that they've put together, like just on paper? Like, should fans think that this is a good roster? Or is this kind of like a what the fuck is this? Like, how do you feel looking at it?
So I guess just speaking on the roster, I think it really depends on 2 things, I guess, which would be like how Sven does in support, if he's actually playing support, which you said. I think support, like role swapping into support, is not easy, just because I think laning in bot lane has a lot of nuances, which I guess Sven would should know as an ADC, but it's not the same as actually performing it, right? Like I can't see someone swapping into support and just being like immediately insane. At least that's just my feeling. I don't really know what Sven is capable of on that role at all. And then it's also going to depend on Fudge's return to top lane. I don't know how that transition will be for him. I think Fudge ended last year on a really good note for his performance in top lane. I think just going right back into it from mid though might be a bit awkward for him, especially depending on the meta. Ending first All-Pro, and yeah, I don't really know about that. I'm not. I don't know if Fudge and Jensen won first All Pro, but also again, Jensen has been on a break now for a while as well, so that's another thing too. So there's just a lot of factors involved. I think it's very unpredictable, to be honest.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I think that's right. I mean, a lot of people were excited to see Bjergsen come back, and obviously he was on a break for a lot longer than Jensen was, but it's clearly taking him some time to get back into the swing of things. And there was a tweet that went viral this weekend of Jensen at a rave, which was hilarious. I don't know if you guys saw that. So we don't know how much time he's been spending at events versus preparing for his return. I'm just kidding. I think he's played a lot of Champions Queue, if I recall. But either way, I think it'll be interesting to see what happens here. And I'm not convinced, because the other thing, Wizard, is that I think that they are basically like, this is in essence like not a full, but a pretty big rebuild of the team at a time when all these other rosters have been playing since lock-in, since January. And now they're kind of like constructing this last minute. And so I just feel like you're asking a lot out of this roster in a very short time. And I'm not saying that they can't do it, but it is like they have a whole lot of catch up that they need to play before they get to a point where like they're all getting all pro and they're making a run at Worlds and all that type of stuff.
Can I ask, Revenge, what are your thoughts on, like, I guess a little bit more on what are your thoughts on Fudge going back to top lane?
I think it's smart of him. I don't think he should have started I don't think he should have swapped to mid lane in the first place. I don't know if that's being too harsh, but I think it would have been nicer to just see him continue building on his career as a top laner. I think it was fun to play against him. I think he was really solid laner at the role. I never agreed with the fact that he should swap in the first place. So I guess glad for him to be back. I guess I wanted to also ask you what you meant though when you said Summit was being a bad teammate. What did you mean by that?
So I don't mean like from a personality perspective. It seemed I can't remember where I read it, so I'm not going to try to quote anybody, but it seemed like after LS's departure, he wasn't willing to step out of his champion comfort zone, as in come time for his pick in a draft, he seemed set on his pick regardless of whether it really was a good pick versus the enemy team or with his team comp or not. I mean, I know that Blabber didn't really give him a ton of attention and resources, but and that could have changed the way those games played out, but the way that they were being played, where he was left alone for so much of the time, he could have picked a bit more team oriented, and as a result, he just wasn't meshing well with the team. I didn't mean that from like this guy was raging in comms or anything.
Revenge, did you ever hear any gossip behind the scene? Any top laners chat with C9, their players, about what was going on? You guys at finals weekend together and people spilling their guts?
No, I mean, I know things I've heard personally that I won't say, but I don't think I think their environment was fine. I do think it's a little funny, the whole, like, when people, like, from a fan perspective, everyone sees it like, oh, LS's departure, or like people still view LS leaving the org as like a bad thing, but like, you guys have to understand, like, that would never have happened if the players didn't want it. I guess, like, I don't mean to like throw LS under the bus, but it's like it happened for a reason, you know. Like, C9's not a shit org to the sense where they're just gonna like boot a coach who had a lot of publicity unless it was for a reason. So that's just one thing. Like, I don't think LS's departure like severely
Doomed
negatively it didn't doom the org, and it didn't severely negatively like affect Summit either. That's just troll. I also think the reason Summit played the champs he did, and in the way he was picking them, was because if he didn't, I think that team would have been a lot worse to split. I think part of the reason they were so exposed in playoffs was because Summit was not only not like overperforming and carrying them, but he was also playing bad, right? Which made them look even worse. And I just think a big reason they were winning a lot of games that they shouldn't have during the split was because of Summit. So it only made sense for him to keep playing those things to give them wins, right? Like, I think that's fair for him, right? Like, I'm sure in scrims they were trying things and it wasn't really working when he wasn't playing his main carry champions. So,
Is that
I
Summit's
think,
fault, Revenge? Like, is that a situation
No.
where it's like, well, okay, he has a champion thimble, so he can't actually like pick enough stuff, and he just loses when you stick him on something else? Or do you think it's just the team itself was kind of one-dimensional? It wasn't his fault.
Well, I see it in two ways. Like, I think part of it might be his fault just because well, it depends on like what you view as like his fault, right? Like, if he's like the super carry of that team, then he has to play those champions and perform, like overperform, like I said, for them to win. Like, I really think he was such a core reason that C9 was winning any games. Like, he can play a lot of other champions. Like, he just can't play them at the level in which he needs to like carry the team to a win. You know, like, the guy can play more than the Gnar and the Jace. You know, it's just maybe not at the point where I guess just to backtrack one little bit too is those champions are also really strong in draft phase because they actually don't need a lot of attention in terms of bans and they're blindable. Whereas a lot of other champions that I'm sure he can carry on, like Camille for example, or like Aatrox, need a lot more attention in the ban phase, which he also wasn't getting, right? So that's one way to view it too.
Well, and I think to your point, like, can they lock in Ornn and win the game just through the other two lanes and like the rest of the team? Whereas it felt like a lot of teams in playoffs could kind of win that way. And I think that was my concern as well when things started falling apart and like he wasn't playing as well and not like solo 1v9ing. I was like, how did they win games from here? And I don't think that team had an answer. So like, it's from the outside for me, I don't know exactly who to blame, but I definitely agree with the idea that like, well, Gnar can be drafted early, blind, win lane, and then make big plays in the mid game, so that he's going to play Gnar. And like, I get where this is coming from, but I don't know what he's supposed to play. Especially in like you said in playoffs, people are focusing down a lot more. So
Yeah, I mean that's the other thing is like he kind of got this spotlight put on him too, and he became like people kind of began to know because you guys also have to keep in mind too that teams scrim C9, so they also know even more of their weaknesses, right? So I don't think that he could have locked in Ornn and won the game. I think you need a really strong bot lane who will like frequently win lane phase or go even and not fall behind in the lane phase to actually pull off tanks in top lane right now successfully. Or just like a reliable, just reliable DPS from the other side of the map consistently. Like I think EG Impact could play tanks, even so I think EG's bot lane was consistently losing lane because I think honestly they got like miracle skirmishes thanks to like Inspired or even Vulcan, and that would kind of give Danny a lead back. But like, yeah, I think having a reliable bot lane in general, I guess, is really important. To like pull off these top lane tanks like this 100 Thieves style someday Ornn, that's just really important.
Recentering back on the take from Wizard about heading into summer, I agree the first team All Pro stuff is pretty ambitious, and I can see a world where this team is ready to go by Worlds and like they're competent and they're making a good playoff push. But as Travis said, you have a lot of players role swapping back. I think of the people, like Fudge might have the easiest time, honestly, of getting back into the grind of things because at least he never left the pro scene and like was scrimming the whole time, and he like his role swap wasn't that long ago, so like he probably can get back the fastest. But Sven's legit picking up a new role. Yes, it's in the same lane, but as people are kind of arguing about in Twitch chat, a lot of the role swaps need to split before they're kind of working out. Huhi, Core JJ, there's a lot of people who swap to support actually. I said Afro, right? Afro, Core JJ, I'm forgetting one.
Afro, Core JJ,
and then
double a switch from support to ADC.
No. Huhi, that's what I was talking about. Huhi, yeah. Huhi took some time as well. So either way, like maybe by the end of the split, Sven's finding his groove, but I don't think he's like gonna like lock in Alistar and find like this fatty flank to like win a team fight that the good Alistars do, you know, like in week 2 and 3. So I think the team has the potential to get there, but it might be a bit of a rocky start, honestly.
I don't know. I feel like Sven's positioning at Baron on Ezreal could do much better with an Alistar instead of Ezreal.
Shut the fuck up.
Do we?
Yeah, when he gets fucking Skarner ulted, he can just Alistar alt out of it. There you go.
Mark, do we have any other calls about Summit leaving, like about the MVP Summit stuff? Like in him
Not
leaving?
really the MVP stuff. I have one about, like I said, the more managerial side that we might dig into a little bit, though. Kind of talked about some.
Yeah, I guess I'll save it. I'll save some of the stuff I've heard.
I mean,
for that
I have
call.
one small note on MVP Summit leaving regarding what my take was that I felt like having Fudge top lane and using the imports a lot more wisely, or even having Jensen mid lane, would have given the win condition and the easier. I'm not saying that I think that Fudge was better than Summit, but if you had somebody mid lane that could have taken those resources and had Fudge top in the first place, I think it would have been better. And that's why I feel that way about how things will go in summer.
So here's one thing I'll say about summer we didn't talk about. While I'm sad that we're losing MVP Summit, here's a hot take. I would rather have lost Summit than Berserker.
Oh, I agree.
I think Berserker is going to be nuts. I think he already is nuts. I just think he didn't have a good laner to showcase it.
I don't even think that's a hot take, by the way.
What's that?
I don't even feel like that's a hot take.
Well, I think it's not a hot take because Summit collapsed towards the end, but I would have said this like week 9, you know, or week 7 or something, you know, like Summit, not like people get developed and this is like, that's the be all end all they're ever going to be. But like Summit was someone who we had seen him in Korea and other places for a pretty long period of time. And while he was really good, he was not like nuggery or like legit, like best in the world caliber. And I'm not saying that's like what Berserker is going to be, but there's like that feeling that he's still untapped a little bit. And I don't know how great he can end up being. And like that potential to me is very interesting. And I know NA might not be the best ecosystem for like continuing to develop that, but like this is exactly what I wanted when I like 3 years ago was talking about trying to find talent in other regions who are young. Like, could you have found Chovy before Chovy developed? Like, that's what I feel like Berserker could be. Like, he could have been one of the best AD carries in Korea right now, and we got our hands on him.
Yeah,
so
instead he'll be a mid
around.
AD carry, but still the best in North America.
he might be a legit hope, you know, like if they make Worlds, like even not even this year, but in the future, you know, like Berserker could be one of those guys who's like helping us out.
Thank you so much, Wizard, for the call. Anything you want to shout out before we take a quick break?
Yeah, I'd like to shout out y'all for putting on this show. I have a Alienware computer, so shout out to Alienware. I'd like to shout out my wife for taking my 3-year-old out of the room when y'all pulled me, or this could have been a disaster. And shout out to Revenge. I hope to see y'all in playoffs in summer. But yeah, y'all have a good night.
Thanks. Have a good one. All right. We're going to take a quick break to talk about Alienware. Shout out to Alienware. Thank you to Alienware for making so many awesome things. I am using, and you guys have heard me talk about this before, the Alienware 34-inch ultra-wide monitor, the QD OLED. Go take a look at this. The reviews still keep coming in, and it is there's I've seen headlines that are like the best gaming monitor ever and all sorts of crazy stuff. So highly suggest you guys check it out. It is a beautiful monitor, and it is in a league of its own at the moment. So if you're thinking about doing some sort of cool upgrade for your space, maybe take a look at the new Alienware 34-inch monitor whenever you're looking for an upgrade alongside your computer. Again, you can go to alienware.com/Travis if you'd like to check that out. And we'll have a new code soon, by the way, because we're flipping over some stuff right now. So I don't have a code for you guys this time. But if anybody's in the market to try to buy something, just stay tuned, or maybe even tweet at me this week if you really need to purchase something, because we're hopefully getting that new code in and functional in the next day or so. Either way, thank you so much to Alienware for sponsoring the show. We really appreciate everything they do, and hopefully you guys go check them out. All right, Mark is off to go grab the next caller. We're going to shout out some subs here. Grim Sun Dawned, Tom Shu, PJ Salt, Fanboy HS, Nullsan, Lexar gifted 3 subs, The Liquidator, Sabacteria, Puck Ferp, ZD Wilson, Adamaxis, Sassy Skunk, 69, Nime Sava, Chameleon, and Epsilon. We'll get some more subs shout out in a second, but Oscar's here. Oscar, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
Eau Claire, Wisconsin. I know very little about Wisconsin, so I have nothing interesting to comment on where you're from. But what would you like to talk about on the show?
So my take is that, okay, we were just talking about Cloud9 and their organizational side. We have what is my favorite team, though, TSM. And I think they are going to be better positioned after this split due to the fact that they blew up in the off-season as opposed to Cloud9, which blew up in the middle of the split. Cloud9 right now, they are looking a little shaky because they have made some moves, and they are... Oh my goodness, I'm throwing. You hate to see it. They are making some roster switches in the middle of the season, and they're making switches with their coaching staff, as opposed to TSM, which they're keeping the same direction that they had at the beginning of the split. If we take a look at Korea for Cloud9 and TSM, which is like the Chinese route, that's what they wanted to take. TSM is still sticking with the Chinese route, and Cloud9 has completely blown up their roster in the direction they wanted to take.
I agree. I find that normally whenever a strategy that I've had fails, I just stick with it and then find success whenever I rerun back the same strategy. I'm just kidding.
You made Revenge have to pinch his nose and rub his forehead so hard his glasses came off. He Revenge looks like he's struggling.
No, I mean, I'm like actually trying to like make sense of what you said. So like a team booming, like, so what did you mean by like TSM is better because they boomed in the off season? I'm confused. Like, didn't TSM boom
during the regular season?
Yeah. So let me explain, because I did definitely troll there. TSM made some interesting changes with their roster in the offseason going to the Chinese route, right? And Cloud9 went towards the Korean route. But if we look at their rosters now, Cloud9 is not going towards that route anymore, whereas TSM still is. And that stability, I think, going forward is going to give them the ability to adapt and grow as an organization. They're going to be able to build off of this brand of Chinese. They're going to be able to keep their coaching staff, as opposed to Cloud9, which they're making some changes, and they're completely changing their direction from the last split.
So do you think keeping so you think TSM is building up a brand of just importing Chinese players? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And as opposed to making these switches, which Cloud9 is, and I think that, you know, they're going to have the better roster for this season. I like their players better on paper, but I think that TSM has a better direction moving forward. At least as a TSM homer, that's the hope that I will try
to give like a more streamlined version of this take. You can look at C9 and you can say, well, they had this like set strategy and set direction at the beginning of this year, and now they're scrambling. They have to send Fudge back top. They have to bring Jensen back to this roster. He hasn't been playing for a while. Now you're role swapping in ADC. It's messy, and you're doing this last minute. Whereas CSM has a clear strategic vision for their team. Again, this is me helping the call. They have a clear strategic vision for the team, which is we want to build around the idea of players who understand kind of the LPL background, and we think LPL is like the best region, so we're going to start, we're going to pull from there, and we're going to do all this stuff. And so because TSM boomed early, they were able to like stick to the strategy and map things out, whereas C9, they're scrambling in the off season to try to figure stuff out, and they're doing all these weird things that don't really fit to a strategy. And so long term, TSM, because they're committed to the strategy, that's how it's going to work out. I've given it the best shine that I can.
They're so committed to that young mid lane talent search that they were doing that they grabbed Maple, really upcoming superstar. Just like it's the same situation as Kaido for sure.
Yeah, my take is I think on paper TSM's roster is a bit better, but I think at the end of the day, I don't really think this import experiment is working out, and the fact that they're kind of doubling down with it again, like this multicultural strategy, is just not like not multicultural, but like just full, like, Chinese imports, Korean imports, and then they're just trying to make it work. I think it's hard. No matter whether or not they've already had the infrastructure for it, I think it's just there's just so many factors at play. Kind of like I said, where just importing players in general has to be a process where the org is really attentive to making the import work, and the player himself also enjoys the life here and can assimilate as well. It's not easy. It doesn't matter how good you are as a player. It's more than just your gameplay that has to make stuff like this work, and that's why I'm still not going to give TSM the benefit of the doubt to make it work. That's just my take. I honestly think C9 is way better off bringing in Jensen and using Sven and of course Fudge role swapping back to top than TSM just adding in new players again who are not familiar with being an NA at all. It's a complete coin flip. Maybe they'll really mesh really well. Maybe they won't. It's just, yeah, they're not better off at all, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I think saying multicultural is fair, given that you also have Chawi, who's coming over, like, is the head coach now. I forgot who came in the middle of the season. As strategic coach.
Glenn.
I think he was. Glenn, you're right.
I think he might be GM, or is he strategic coach?
I forget, was it GM or strategic coach? But like, obviously you have Maple, Taiwanese, and then Shenyi. Like, so it is multicultural. It is like also multicultural in North America. So like, to Revenge's point, there's a lot of elements that like outside the game might not line up that well. Whereas at least for C9, they've all played and lived in North America for quite a while, and they seem pretty happy there. They also all know how their personalities mesh outside the game, in theory. Like, I know Fudge and Jensen haven't played together necessarily, but like, they are all been around each other for a period of time. So there's like less in-game hurdles. You could make the case that, and I'm not making this case, but you could make the case, at least in-game wise, TSM will be better. Like, if you're just like, oh, well, Maple's been to Worlds, and he does really crazy when he gets to Worlds, and Huhi has hit this peak, and if they all hit their peaks, TSM's better or something. But I don't see it. And the whole, like, direction of the org thing, you can spin that however you want. Like, yeah, C9's not Team LCK anymore, and it's closer to Team LPL for TSM, but Team LPL also crash and burn last split. So like, they're just doing it again, and it could just crash and burn again. So like, at that point, like, is it really better to stick to a failing game plan? I don't know.
Here's sort of my take on this. I don't think TSM's roster building like a top 5 team anymore. I don't think they're spending like a top 5 team anymore, and I don't think they're roster building like a top 5 team anymore. And they have dramatically changed their strategy in terms of building their roster. We saw that during this offseason going into spring, and we are continuing to see it going into summer. I think it's also an interesting situation where you have a team like Evil Geniuses go off and like show what you can do whenever you try to invest over time in NA talent. Like, it would have been cool to see TSM try to pivot to something like that. Instead, we still have imports. and I just like it is hard to have a lot of faith in TSM at the moment because I don't see them making the big plays that old teams used to do. In fact, this feels more like the CLG that we kind of mocked for a long time. Like, again, as funny as it is that there's like the, I'd never let TSM become like CLG thing. Like, what they are doing feels like a spin on the CLG take for a while of like.
Well, even you saying that they're not trying to be top 5. I mean, we have another caller about this, so
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to go quite too hard on it, but yeah, I guess I'll save it.
Sure.
There's another TSM take. Yeah. This was supposed to be the optimistic one, and obviously we're all pessimistic, so it'll be a pessimistic caller too.
I'm sorry, Oscar. I know you're a TSM fan and you're trying to copium out, but we got no copium for you here. I apologize.
There's not a copium dealer to be found among the three of us.
Yeah. I gave you the.
I'll tell you what. They've got a stable top laner, a stable jungler. They got a stable AD carry, a stable coaching staff, and they're bringing in 2 new imports. Hopefully, that's all they need.
How much do you know about how Maple's most recent performance has been?
I heard he got subbed and was on the 13th place LPL team, but that's A-okay, I believe.
Oscar, anything you want to shout out before we go on to the next caller?
Travis, love to shout out you. Revenge, love to shout out you. Alienware, G Fuel. And that's all I got. See ya.
No shout out for Mark, and also a shout out for a competitor to a previous sponsor. That's okay, Oscar. I love you. Thank you for coming in. It wouldn't be the show if we didn't have TSM optimists call it in. But I really appreciate it, and we'll catch you next time.
I gotta say, that was just like, even at the end, just the unshakable faith. Like, this guy could watch TSM get 10th place, and he'll be like, feeling really good right now, actually.
No, this is the thing, right? Okay, so at the start of this split, I did that poll. We showed the poll last time, and 10% of people declared themselves TSM fans. At the end of this split, I did the poll. 10% of people declared themselves TSM fans. Unshakable TSM fans. Okay, that's what
they're unshakable. Like, yeah, stable top lane with a straight face. Stable jungler. Normally I'd agree, but last split, I don't know. Like, hey, we're good. He was 10th. He was 13th place mid laner. We're good.
That guy was really throwing out some things. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll wait for the next. Is the next caller about TSM as well?
We'll try and find him so we can go all in on TSM.
Because I do have a take on TSM, but I'll wait for the next.
Let me go find him.
Go grab him. Chameleon, thank you. Epsilon, Tap B for Bacon, V2 Beta, The Noblet, It's Another Loser, Aerohydrius, and Samiz. Thank you for the 1 year. Thanks everybody for the subs. Really appreciate it. If anybody's got a Prime sub, Twitch is going to nerf this shit soon enough, so please, I got to get the good while the good is getting whatever. Anyway, PapaDon is here. PapaDon, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Boston.
From Boston?
Yep.
No way this person's positive.
What would you like to talk? Yeah, a Boston fan. What would you like to talk about on the show?
I think TSM aiming for top 5 is pretty troll.
Sorry, can you get a little closer to your microphone? You're kind of cutting it out. PapaDon. Can we get you? Did we lose you?
I think in the attempt to get closer to the microphone, he unplugged
got
his
further
microphone.
away. PapaDon,
He blew
come
it
back.
out.
We can't hear you. Try to get your microphone back. Okay. Mark,
It was good run while it lasted.
You want to just read their take?
Oh, I saw it go green. PapaDon?
PapaDon, are you here?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello?
Hello. What's your take? Try again.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say TSM aiming for, like, anywhere close to, like, top 3 is pretty troll right now. I don't think they're, like, anywhere near prepared to go there. I also think, like, specifically importing support is super troll. Like, I don't think you should be doing that. I think if you look at, like, the supports that are around, you could easily make a better bot lane.
Okay, so they're not a top 3 team, and importing a support is troll.
They're not a top team, and aiming for it's troll as well.
Yeah. Who do you think they should pick up in the support role, PapaDon?
I think they should have aimed for like Ayla or like
Ayla, yeah. That's a I think a very big one.
Isles is on the market right now.
Yeah.
yeah. Shout out to Busio, man. Dude needs to be on the team.
Busio, yeah.
Okay. So let's go with this. One, Revenge. What do you think? Do you think that they should not be importing a support player?
Well, I'll say I think Busio probably needs another split, at least in Academy. I think he's definitely promising, but there's no way that if TSM is actually trying to go for top 5 or top 3, they should get him. Ayla, I don't know if, a lot of people know this, but people, like, orgs put on really big buyouts for players, and people can't just, like, yoink a player from Academy sometimes. Like, I'm sure people want Ayla, but they just can't get him, or there's even a chance that he doesn't want to go to TSM.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe
To be
between
clear,
the splits,
clear, I don't know. If he wants to go to TSM, I'm sure they could get him because Steve was literally on the Live Hotline League in Houston trying to
Travis.
market Ayla. But
What up and coming young player wouldn't want to join TSM? Think of the brand power they have. Just think, when you join TSM, you become a top 5 streamer in North American Twitch.
I mean, listen, I'm not Ayla, so I'm not gonna speak for him, but like, I'm just saying, like, it's not just that easy for them to just yoink a support from another team between splits, because there's a lot of financial things that orgs think about. And on top of that, I think that support in NA is actually one of the weakest roles, period. I think it's not even close, to be honest. I think NA probably has the most far from developing support talent, like, for a lot of reasons. I think, like, the solo queue culture is not really that good for bringing up supports in general. In most regions, I think we just don't have many up-and-coming talents for the role as well. So I think importing support is probably the smartest thing an organization can do out of all the roles. And I mean, like, look at C9, they're literally role swapping Sven into support rather than looking for someone NA to get. Like, that's a huge telltale sign that there's just literally no one, or it's really rare. So I think them going for import support's actually, like, the least dumb thing that they could do. However, I will say my hot take, with Spica's contract running out at the end of the split, I'm pretty sure that I could see TSM changing, like, literally their entire roster next split, or at least 4 of the 5 players. That's my take. I think I think from my feeling, that team is just looking to try to do okay this split. I don't see them building the roster, like you guys said, to be a top 3, top 5 team. It's just not spend that much, do okay, and probably completely revamp the entire roster next split. Like, I think that's more easy to see with these changes. And
the only thing for me is, if you were really thinking of that, I feel like you would just try to find somebody to buy out Spica's contract, so that, like, this split, so that you could make some money before. Like, if you think you're going to lose him anyway, and you're just kind of trying to, like, do okay this split, I would definitely be like, hey, Spica, do you want to go someplace? Like, anybody want to pay me several $100,000 to have Spica? Like,
let's think of that, right? Like, 100 Thieves has a jungler that they're not going to change. EG has a jungler they're not going to change. TL has a jungler they're probably not going to change. Who else is who am I missing, actually, out of the top 4, top 5?
C9. Yeah.
C9's not getting rid of Blabber. The rest of the orgs are either happy with their jungler, or Spica's probably they'll probably try to sell Spica for way too much. Yeah, IMT, TG. I mean, I'm just saying, like, if TSM wants to actually sell Spica, they'd probably want to sell him for a lot of money.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're losing him anyway, like, why? Like, even $100,000, you know what I mean? Like, we just saw
even some gum, he's gonna be gone in 6 months.
He's still that's the thing. He's still a great. If you're thinking like a GM, he's still a great player. So why not? Like, if it's like 100 or 200 grand, why might as well just keep him the split and have him perform, right? Like,
I mean, do you think he's going to perform if he's planning on leaving at the end? And this is speculative, right? But like, if you
speculative.
think
It
you're
is
losing him
speculative,
anyway,
but,
like, why keep him around where
No,
he's just sort of like, all right,
maybe
fuck
they
it.
can't get anyone better. Like, who would want to join that?
Yeah, and,
like,
and as Papa Smithy's
that
saying,
roster,
chat,
yeah.
it's still a contract year. Like, if Spica just goes out and shits a brick after having not a super impressive spring split, like, he's just hurting his chances in the future to negotiate onto one of these good teams that, like, Revenge is saying he wants to be on. So I think there is some pressure on Spica to still perform regardless. Though I'm sure his motivation is going to struggle if TSM struggles as well, but that's less than him just like milking it and sitting and not giving a shit. So I don't know. I kind of see both sides. Like, as a GM, if you think this player's absolutely fucking gone, maybe he's not absolutely fucking gone, and that's why they're not doing it. Maybe he's like, well, I'll definitely test my options, but TSM, you're still in the running. Then maybe you don't move him away.
But I mean, also from an org POV, like, why would an org buy out Spica's contract for one split?
They would re-sign them at the same time.
Well, that's his choice.
You have to
That's
convince
not,
him.
Yeah, that's his choice. Like, why would it's so much. I feel like it's so many things to go through. That's why I think that TSM can't just sell Spica. I feel like it's way too hard. That's my take of it.
Yeah, to backtrack us a little bit about, like, you both have said something about, like, TSM not trying that hard this split. And Travis, you said, like, not super expensive, but, like, I don't see how Maple can be that different than Kaido in terms of contract. I know Kaido's buyout was probably higher. It doesn't seem like the LPL team is trying to. I think people actually it sounded like TSM actually had to spend buyout money to get Kaido. But like, what? It seems to me, looking at this, is a move that says, like, hey, we don't want to just suck ass in summer, so we're trying to get, like, a somewhat established.
No, dude, this is like a move that, like, has Andy Din written all over it. Andy's, like, obsessed with creating this, like, this team that is, like, gonna build their brand in China, and, like, you end up with a bunch of Mandarin speaking players and all this stuff. And so I feel like this is just a situation where he's like, you don't have any budget, Mr. GM. Go get me players that, like, I can have this team that is going to speak Mandarin, and, like, I can start to build, because LCS is dying. Imports. I just want my team to be popular with players in another region, or fans in another region. Like, I think buying fucking Jensen is the move that you make if you want to try to, like, build something compelling. I think, like, looking and saying, like, okay, we're losing this year, we're going to, like, try to promote some of our academy players and start to build an infrastructure that is meaningful. Like, I don't look at this.
That's my point. It's like, it's obviously not a long-term play. It's not going to make you more like, I don't think anyone thinks it's going to make you more popular in China when, like
do you know how popular fucking Blitz is in China? Like,
yeah, I know it's huge, but, like, why would people care that Maple is going to get 7th place in NA, and that's going to make him an LPL, LPL fan, a fan of TSM?
I am not saying that this is a strategy that I think is good, but it lines up with what I think their strategy has become over time, which is, who cares about our NA audience? Like, we're going to go at, or it's either the flawed thought that, like, you can just build a team that, like, doesn't really resonate or connect with
I don't think it's Andy Din's hands on at all. I think it's Chowie and Glenn being like, hey.
Yeah, but who brought in Chowie and Glenn?
Well, sure, but I'm saying, like, they brought in because they want to invest in LPL. I agree. That was their plan. And now they're getting someone who is probably relatively cheap because no one in the LPL wants him. But I don't think that this is, like, a plan for the future, but it's also not, like, it can't be that insignificant to bring him over, as well as, like, I just don't see the point, to the caller's point about, like, okay, what's your goal with this lineup? If it's not to top 3, it's not to develop for the future. Like, is Maple your new mid laner next year too?
This is what happens.
I just don't get what it is.
This is what happens whenever you have a situation where you've slashed your budget and yet you still demand results with a roster. And also you become obsessed with the idea of, like, trying to build, like, a brand in China. Like, I think that is exactly what you see has happened here, is, like, they are not spending the way they used to. They're not spending at the level of these other teams, and they have a flawed strategy. They lost Scoutmaster Parth, who you and I know was way more influential in creating a winning formula for that team than any of the TSM fans ever want to give him credit for.
Yeah.
And like what they've left with now is like Andy Did's crazy wild adventure, and every TSM fan is going to go along with it for the next couple of years because, and we'll see how it works.
So you keep saying cheaper, but at least according to Reggie's wild adventure, whatever you called it, you said that the lineup that they put together in spring was as expensive as the Double Lift Jensen lineup would have been. So I know they're not like.
And and that was either a very, very, like, I've talked to people who have said that is either a very generous interpretation of how much it would have cost to get the Double Lift Jensen lineup, or they like dramatically overspent. Okay, like this team is not spending, like they either spent like crazy on buyouts, or they just don't actually know how much it would have cost to get Double Lift and Jensen, because I'm pretty sure like with the salary, like the amount of money that they spent on those 5 players last split, I don't think they could have afforded to get Jensen and Double Lift alone for that much. And yeah, maybe there's like the buyout stuff. And again, imagine if they spent this much money on buyouts for players that are no longer on the team, like that also shouldn't instill any confidence in a TSM fan.
Well,
you just spent all this money to buy out these 2 players that you're now getting rid of after 3 months.
One of them subbed into the FPX lineup and won Player of the Week. I think it was Player of the Week. Might have been Player of the Series. I forget what it was. But Shenyi had a lot of hype around him. And to get him, they definitely had to actually spend some money. This is like picking up, Tenacity-esque level, from my understanding. Like, you don't just walk into the LPL and get Shenyi.
I think here's what I think is happening, folks.
So I think
Mark
spent money.
is trying to get me to just spill everything that I have heard and have this big reaction here. And so he's just poking at the buttons right now to try to be like, what can I get Travis to say?
I legitimately think that they spent money. I don't think this is just some like low budget, we don't give a fuck move, is what I'm saying. Like I think Maple was cheaper than what they did in between the offseason.
No, okay. I don't think it was a we don't give a fuck move. I think it was a we have a bad strategy move. Because it was not like this strategy was not like Parth's strategy. This was not like the roster he would have built if he was sticking around and had
apparently
been given,
none
like,
of them
volition.
were.
Like I just don't again, I have said this before in content that it is I think the only reason I have optimism right now for TSM is that I like Dominic, and I think that he is a good person for an org to hire. I just worry that he does not have the ability to push back on stuff the way that Parth and Bjerg were, and I don't think that he's been given the budget that Parth and Bjerg were. And so it's not bad for the league if like TSM pops off. It's not bad for me either because I finally get interviews now thanks to Dominic. But it is still not something I expect to happen. And I do think that there is a lot of copium happening right now for TSM fans where like if fucking Dig or Golden Guardians were making these moves, they'd be getting so much shit. But because it's TSM, people are like, TSM, yeah, this is all part of a master plan. Like I'm just like, guys, like the master planners left that organization. One of them is at Team Liquid, and the other one is talking all about how it's important to build native talent and send your players to scout like boot camps in Korea. Like, I don't think that. Again, like I don't see where the faith is coming from.
Yeah, I think if you go check the thread, most people think that this move doesn't really make any sense.
Yeah.
Maybe the TSM fans are the one coping. Mo.
Yeah. What's up?
Where does this team end? Give us the final say. What's TSM end in the regular season in summer?
6th or 7th. That's my take. 6th or 7th. Yeah. I think Spica and Maple are still better than some other players and some other rosters I'm hearing, but it might crash and burn as well again. It's really hard to tell, honestly, because I don't really know who's in charge of the decisions being made, but I just don't I think if the roster last split couldn't work, I don't really see this one working.
I don't think 6th or 7th is like I don't think that's unreasonable. As much as I was like not a believer, right? Like it's easy to see Golden Guardian, CLG, and like Dig filling up those bottom 3 spots. Hopefully, Immortals looks really good with the changes that they're making. But yeah, I don't think it's that crazy.
Look up Rhyme T.
But let's put it this way: I don't think it is hard to get 6th or 7th in this league right now. So, yeah.
True.
And that's why I have so much faith that you guys will do it this split. Revenge, you'll get at least 6th or 7th. Okay, PapaDon, thanks for the call. Anything you want to shout out before we go on to the next caller?
Nah,
Nope.
not really. Shout out TSM. I hope they're good so I can be an even bigger hater this year.
You hope TSM is good so you can be an even bigger hater. Okay, well, thank you, PapaDon. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks.
All right. On to the next caller. Thank you to Simons88, Bezzy and PF Wangers for these subs. I very appreciate it. Okay, we should have somebody back here in a second from Mark. How you doing, Revenge?
Not bad. I was just trying to process a lot of the things you guys are saying. I do know some things too, but I will not comment.
I mean, regardless, the things that you have heard at least don't give you as much confidence if you're still placing them at 6th or 7th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just being generous, but I don't know. I think Ming I like Ming and Huhi, and I think they can bounce back. I mean, especially Ming, but
yeah. I
Still
think
coping,
we're a lot
TSM.
of Spica believers here. All right, being a TSM skeptic does not mean being a Spica skeptic. Squizzomatic, where are you calling from?
Hey, calling from Charlotte, North Carolina.
Charlotte, North Carolina. What do you want to talk about on the show?
So my take was, I'm going to preface this with I'm actually a huge 100 Thieves supporter, but just sad to see my team flame out as they did. So my take, TLDR version, was I think for them to have continued success, that we need to look to replace 2 of the 3 players, and I think those are Huhi, Closer, and Abbedagge.
Sorry,
Like a
you said
TLDR.
you said 2 of the 3 players, and then you said 3 names.
Yeah, he said 2 of those 3.
Oh, 2.
Yeah, I think we
Okay,
should
2 of those 3 players. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying replace 2 out of the 5. Okay. Anyway, so which do you have any reason why it's 2 of those 3 rather than just like a hard?
Yeah, I think of like the roster itself, I think FBI is a good building block. He's a good ADC, good young ADC. Someday is like our impact. I mean, as long as he's going to be around, he's going to be a top 5 top laner in the league. So getting down to those 3, I think Huhi's probably the weakest on the roster. He is still a strong support, but I would think people like Isla would be better, and that's just an academy player. And I think support, I know we kind of alluded to it earlier, but with like players like Isla and Busio kind of out there is good young talent that you can kind of promote and wouldn't be that much, if any, of a drop off. Closer, as he is like the MVP of the team, I do think he requires a very specific play style, and if he can't carry the game, I see us struggling more often than not. And we've never really seen him play a tank. I don't think we'll ever see Closer on Sejuani or something like that. And then kind of Abba, I feel like he's a good stopgap, and he is a good mid laner. But how the team wants to play, or a good identity for them, I don't see him really playing for jungle that well. Or if we want to play through FBI, I don't really see him playing to help the bot lane. He's not like a really lane dominant to kind of have mid be pushing to kind of help play for bot better. If that makes sense.
I see Revenge he's very animated for this call, so I think Revenge is ready to hop in.
Kept smirking.
No, man. I mean, okay. What you said about the team not being different if you just slot in someone like Busio, it's just wrong, man. It's just wrong. Like, I actually think this is like a perspective I want to give a lot of people who do root for top teams a lot. But I think for a team to be a top team, at least top three, I think everybody, at least I would say 4 of the 5 players on that team actually have to gel outside of the game. They have to also gel inside of the game, whether that's personality, synergy with a lot of things like the champions they play, the role that they fit on the team. It really isn't that easy to just slot in a new player on any top team and expect them to be a top team. That's just not ever gonna be a thing, unless you really think about it and put in the time. Like we see teams like take EG for example, right? Adding in JoJo and changing like Vulcan and Inspired. Like they did all these big changes, but it was in the big off season where there's a lot more time to think about things. There's a lot more time to plan things behind the scenes, even have time to practice before the split, during the split. It's actually like not that simple to just replace a player on a top team with someone and then expect them to still be a top team. On top of that, I don't think Busio or Ayla are significantly better than Huhi to the point where they would actually like bring such a value that would make that team change. I think what you said about Closer was also just completely bizarre. Like I don't like I don't think tank junglers have been meta for like over a year, and so I think that just made no sense. I think Closer is probably one of the team's top performers, along with Someday. And then what you said about Abe, I think Abe was definitely not performing that great in playoffs. I think if you wanted to make an argument for anyone to change, it would probably be him. But I still think that a change, like changing Abe or Huhi between splits, will not make that team be a top team. They will need a lot of time to develop if they change either of those 2 roles. That's my take.
On the jungle thing too, like he picked Jarvan a couple times, which is the closest thing to a tank jungler you kind of get. He played Trundle as well a couple of times, which again is basically a tank jungler right now. I'm sure if Sejuani buffs ever come through, like Closer will play it. I think it's true that he's at his best on playmakers and more individualized champions like the Viegos and Lee Sins and things that can kind of like have that pop off potential. But like that, I don't think that means that he can't play other things. The same way, like, yeah, Smithy was great on control junglers, but he actually had a fine Lee Sin, and like, he could play anything. Like, I think people having play styles is not a dirty word the way it sometimes seems to be to fans, even to players themselves who like don't want to be put in a box, when it's like it's fine to acknowledge that you have like your tendencies that make you good at certain champs or whatever. But yeah, I don't think him not playing Sejuani when she hasn't been good in 3 years is like a good argument to make
as
against
an example. But I mean, that's fair. I mean, I also said 2 of the 3, Closer probably being my distant third of those, because of when he pops off, he is going to carry the game. Like, he's like one of those MVP candidate kind of players. So I would lean more toward Huhi and Abba. And to Revenge's point of, yes, Isla or Busio wouldn't be that much of an upgrade, but I would say maybe the upside of having a younger, newer player, thinking long term, not just saying to be a top team this split, thinking like kind of long term for the team, wouldn't the upside kind of outweigh the synergy?
Well, all right, well, pretend you're the GM of the team and your owner is telling you, I mean, you could just look at Nadeshot's tweets. The guy is like, win, 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 win. That team is not, I'll tell you right now, I don't think 100 Thieves is ever going to try to be a development roster for a while. Unless, and if they were, it would happen in Spring Split, not in Summer Split. That's for sure. I think them making changes entering Spring Split wasn't going to make that much sense, just because I think, they won Summer Split, right? I don't think they looked great at Worlds, but they still looked okay. And I'm sure that the guys, all 5 of them, probably really get along. I know they tried to slot in Tenacity. I'm sure that's something like probably Papa Smithy or their GM did push, for the future of the org. Look at this new prospective top laner, but it probably didn't work. But my point is that if you're making changes to a roster like 100 Thieves with a goal which is to win, you're not going to make a change between splits unless you can seriously like have the proper read on it and it's like a necessity, which I don't think it is. I mean, they were literally in finals. I think that team will still be fine to make a run at finals in summer if they keep the same roster. And if you want to look at the org for long term and focus on development, that's just something that won't happen until probably next year if they wanted to do that. And even then, I think it's, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know enough about how that org thinks, but my point is moves like that are decisions that the org makes based on like goals, you know, and their goals have to change or adjust if they want to go that route.
Revenge, not to send us down too much of a rabbit hole, but you were mentioning that you don't feel like making like a top team making changes during spring or summer is going to lead you to be successful. Does that mean like you're very down on Cloud9?
Well, no, I think unless let me reiterate. I think if you're looking to like revamp the org because of really, really big issues that arose, like a team booming, like from my understanding, I don't think 100 Thieves boomed. Like we kind of boomed last split, obviously. We're changing 3 of our members. We were in the top team, but I think teams making big changes between splits, it can actually be really good, but I don't think that it is good when you're looking at a team that's like a team like, say, TL or 100 Thieves or even EG, for example, you know? Because I think that they actually did have good systems, good rosters, you know, and like a good roster and good systems in their rosters. And we saw them look like very good teams, right? And so I think to justify making a change of a player like Huhi or like Abbedagge, especially closer, is just, it would have to mean a lot of things are actually happening behind the scenes in that team for things to change, which I don't think, from my understanding, they are. But either way, to your point, Travis, about C9, I think C9 definitely was having a lot of internal issues for sure. From, you know, I'm sure you know probably some, and I know that we could see it in their gameplay as well in the playoffs. It wasn't just I think Peter is that Peter Dunn who said 100 Thieves had one bad day. Like I think C9 didn't just have one bad day. It was definitely not just something like that, right? So I think them making these kind of big changes between the splits as a top team is more justified and probably understandable from like a management perspective, I think.
Yeah.
And to give Travis's take on this, roster turnovers are bad. And 100 Thieves are popular partially because they have a good group of guys who get along well together and make good content. And they should stay together if they're all getting along and making finals and stuff like that.
I'm worried about Huhi.
Well, yeah, that's also a point too, for sure.
Like I'm very curious if this Biofrost sad tweet is related at all to a 100T support situation. Sorry, go ahead, Squizzomatic.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just like another point that I typed in the overall comment of like kind of complacency, sort of that kind of leans into that. How last year they won summer, obviously. It was a great run. This year they made finals. But I would say even last year going into this year, this team I wouldn't say is leaps and bounds better than everybody. Like the TLs, EGs, Cloud9s, the other top teams in the league. And as they make changes to try to improve their roster, 100 Thieves kind of staying same because synergy, I don't really see how much more this roster can grow. And that's kind of why I lean to looking at replacing 1, maybe 2 players here and there. If it's not this split, then going in the next split, seeing where this goes. But like as the other top teams make changes to get better and they kind of stay same, I don't see how, if your aspirations are to just kind of be good in NA, then they probably will keep doing that. But I mean, they've talked about wanting international success, wanting to keep winning NA, and I mean, they had a bad day, but I don't see how everyone else is as constantly improving. They're gonna stay good in NA / have that international success.
Yeah.
That's why I lean on like kind of replacing 1, 2 people.
What top teams do you think are making changes exactly? You said.
Well, I mean, like in general, like so the beginning of the year, like everyone did. Like, you know, C9 had their overhaul, TL had some overhaul, EG brought their people in.
Right.
And then now going into summer, Cloud9's overhauling again. But like going into summer, I think TL is just going to get better. They're going to kind of address what went wrong, and with their experience, they're just going to get better. They're not going to get worse. And I would say our 100 Thieves almost, you could argue, got lucky against TL. I mean, I like the win, and it was a great win. It was a great game, great series. But I mean, that was definitely pushed to the brink just to beat TL to get to finals. Look at the kitten. So like, if they're just going to keep staying the same, where do they kind of fall if everyone else is improving and has a higher ceiling? If EG's not replacing anybody, but they're still skew younger as a team, they have arguably a higher ceiling if they've already won.
Well, I'll reframe, I guess, how you think a bit about teams, I guess, in your perspective, staying the same, because if a team is ending the split in finals or even just on the higher end of playoffs, that team is the opposite of staying the same. Throughout the whole split, metas change, and the teams that actually are at the top at the end are actually teams that can adapt and grow and actually mold into the meta or whatever like strengths they have as a team. And I think to say that 100 Thieves isn't growing or is a team that's not showing growth is just wrong. I think it's just straight up wrong. I think 100 Thieves definitely does grow, or it shows the prospect of growing as a team throughout a split, which is ultimately, or adapting, which is just the most important thing that a team can show. You know, they've shown that by getting to finals last year. They showed it by getting to finals this year. So I think you should think more about the process of what it means to make it to finals as a team. Like even take EG, they were not looking great throughout the split at the start, and then they scaled into playoffs and grew as a team, you know, like, and made it to finals dominantly. And I know you're saying EG, I know you said that EG made changes and stuff, but my point is that even without changes, like the players are still have capabilities to improve and grow and change and adapt to certain metas.
And
that's something important to think about.
Yeah, and C9 in like middle of the season, EG and 100 Thieves both look like not ass, but like, you know, 4th, 5th best teams, and it's TL and C9 were 100% the best teams in the league, right? And then the split, different stories. So yeah, teams go up, teams go down.
Thank you, Squizzomatic. Unfortunately, we need to move on because we've still got a lot to talk about in a short time. But thank you for the call. Anything you want to shout out?
Yeah, no worries. It's great. Thanks for having me on. Obviously, shout out all your sponsors. It's a great show. Shout out Immortals. Hope you guys do better. I always like to watch you guys. Shout out the broadcast with Mark, and I'm gonna shout out my other favorite podcast, the 100 Talk Pod. I know this has been brought up a lot on the desk more recently, a couple times. They host a rec league every Thursday where the bronze get bronzier. It's really fun to play. Yeah, so shout out you guys.
Yeah, thanks so much for the call, and we'll catch you next time. All right, we're gonna take one more call, and then we'll do a break. Mark is off to go grab the next caller. Chuck Reels, thank you for the sub. Really appreciate it. I'm sorry to all of our video callers, video watchers right now on live or on YouTube, but we are having some issues with Mark's camera, so hopefully we will get that sorted in due time. And then you guys will be able to have just an image of him rather than the terrible image that is there at the moment.
Call. Revenge, if you want to get water, go to the bathroom. This is a good time to go. This is a Travis call.
Oh boy. Whoa. Rob, where are you calling from?
I'll be listening. I'm just gonna grab food.
I am calling from a cafe in Gwangju, South Korea.
Oh, you're in South Korea? Okay. What do you want to talk about on the show?
So I wanted to talk about how, as a fan that wants to attend MSI, it was a little frustrating about the kind of radio silence about like the tickets and about how there wasn't really any info about when they would go on sale, or they just came out like this morning, basically, or this morning my time. And so they also changed the schedule kind of last minute for the Rumble stage, which was the stage I was most interested in attending. So it's just not that they necessarily did anything wrong because of the COVID stuff, but it's kind of like annoying. And to give a little bit more context, like the most comparable MSI, I guess, because it's the last one that had an audience, I think was 2019. and they announced the tickets. I think like 6 weeks before. They said like they're going to go on sale March 25th, and then I think the first stage started May 10th or something. So there was quite a big gap between like the stage games and the tickets going on sale, and then another gap between them going on sale and being announced. Whereas right now they announced the tickets are going on sale tomorrow for the first stage, and the games are starting in like 8 days. And then they're going on sale for the Rumble stage on the 11th, and they're starting on the 20th. So it's only like a 9-day gap.
Yeah. You know what's really annoying? Did they express any explanation for why this was a thing? Like what? Like it's in. I'm looking up the post right now because I saw the tweet go out, and I saw a lot of people frustrated about the like situation, and even before this, people are complaining like, "Hey, when is our tickets going on sale? This is like something that we've been waiting." Unfortunately, the LoL Esports website is not loading. Is anybody actually?
LCK tweeted it out, and I think LoL Esports did too. But
I
if
think
the site isn't loading, I think that's what it is.
Website is broken right now. Yeah. Okay. Well, they
might
got it
be able to
up
find
on their
on
website
Facebook.
twice, and one of the links works and one of them doesn't, which is humorous. I think what's disappointing to me is that there was no effort made in this very, very minimal post to like apologize for, or like try to explain. Like normally Riot would come out and be like, "Hello, tickets are on sale. First off, we want to apologize for like the delay. You know, there were these situations that prevented us from being able to accurately tell when we were going to be able to do this, and we wanted to make sure that it was safe, and blah 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 blah." And I am kind of surprised that this is just so like it literally leads with MSI is just around the corner. Yeah, it is just around the corner. In 8 days, this thing is happening, and so it really doesn't. I feel for you in that it feels like there was not much effort, or there's not even like any kind of sympathy to the situation that they put you guys in trying to do this. So it's like I agree. I have some lenience to the idea that like the situation in Korea is pretty crazy. Like I only just found out that they're not doing on-site media like in the past couple of days, and only have the ability to register as media around that time too. Like. And in the past, I've been more critical of the stuff. I want to give them some room here because I know how weird it is. But it's like a little disappointing that there was seemingly like no sympathy or explanation or understanding of like, sorry guys, like we kind of fucked you over if you wanted to go to this event. So I think that's kind of disappointing. Can I ask you, since you're in Korea, what the situation is like there, and if it's like weird that they're holding this with an audience at all? Because like, from what I heard, it got really crazy there.
It was really crazy. I landed about 8 or 9 days ago. So, but they actually just lifted the outdoor mask mandate yesterday, and they have been easing the restrictions of like how many people you can gather for, going to bars and stuff like that. So they have been easing restrictions as I think they hit their peak about a month and a half ago, maybe a month ago. So it is coming down. It is still kind of a little bit dicey, but. The fact that there was no communication and combined with like the high case count had a lot of people even questioning, will there be an audience? But everything kind of pointed towards there being an audience, but I don't think there was an official confirmation from Riot.
They announced that like we're excited to have it in front of an audience whenever they announced it. So
I see. Yeah, I don't know if it was confirmed whether all of the stages would have an audience or just finals or something like that. So it was a lot of like, we wouldn't be having it in a convention center in Busan if there wasn't an audience and everything. But just the fact that there wasn't much communication around tickets made it very uncertain and difficult to plan a trip because, Busan's kind of far from the rest of Korea that people typically go to, like Seoul. So it's kind of like you have to go out of your way to go there. And if you don't know whether you're going to get tickets or not, it's a little bit annoying if you're a trip holder.
Revenge, did we lose you? Oh. Looks like Revenge might have dropped out. Oh, he's back. Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just a little disappointing the way they handled it, and it's the type of thing where like I'm happy you bring it up on the show because I think for a lot of us, we're like, well, we're not going to go to to MSI anyway, so it doesn't impact us. But if they did this, for instance, around Worlds this year, it would be very upsetting. So I do not like. I'm happy that you're raising this as an issue. Did you go over there specifically to see MSI?
No, I'm here for 5 weeks. I'm visiting in-laws and everything. So I was already here, thankfully, and it'll be my first league event I'm ever attending. So I'm pretty happy about that if I can get tickets. But the only day I can actually attend is the first Rumble stage day. So that's
if you
another
don't get tickets tomorrow,
reason I
you're
was
shit
kinda
out of luck.
stressed. Yeah, if I don't get tickets for that, I'm kind of screwed. So that was another thing. It's like, yeah, but I'm just happy for the opportunity to be able to go because they don't really do East Coast events. The last one that they were doing was Newark, which got canceled. So that's where I usually am, residing. So
Yeah. Well, best of luck getting your ticket. Sorry to hear about that, but is there anything you want to shout out before we go take a quick break?
No, not really. Shout out to my wife who's playing Wild Rift at the cafe next to me. So
Nice. I play so much Wild Rift ARAM at night. I just get in bed, watch something, and then play Wild Rift ARAM. Rob, thanks so much for the call. Go ahead.
Thank you. Bye. I was just saying I couldn't deal with the players in Wild Rift, so I uninstalled.
Gotcha. No, ARAM is fun. You should try that. It's very low stress. Anyway, we'll catch you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. We're going to take a quick break to talk about Grubhub. If you watched the live Hotline League, and so many people came out to see that, you have Grubhub to thank for that. They've been fantastic to work with. Really, really appreciate them. I believe you might have just a little bit more time to use code Frenzy if you're watching live. If not, I think it ends on today. So get in your Frenzy orders on Grubhub if you'd like to do that, because I do think it's slowly running out. But thank you so much to Grubhub for making Live Hotline League happen. It was super cool to work with them in Houston. Mark, have you ordered anything? You've been traveling, so I don't know if you've had a chance to order any good Grubhub food recently, but
nope.
Maybe you could have left Ashley with some of your Grubhub credit to,
Well, she ordered a lot of avocado toast last week, apparently.
Okay. Well, there you go. So there goes your Grubhub credit, I guess, that you and I both get. It's all into the avocado toast. If you end up working MSI, which I am aware you cannot comment on publicly at this time, perhaps you can leave her with some more Grubhub credit, because you and I just are getting the drop right now from them because it's the beginning of the month. So thank you so much to Grubhub for making so much happen for us and making Live Hotline League happen, for sponsoring it. Please use the link in the YouTube description if you can to check them out. You can also use the one that I just dropped in the Twitch chat. But thank you to Grubhub for sponsoring the show. All right. Mark, you want to go grab the next caller? Off he goes. What are you eating, Revenge? And why are you eating on the show? How dare you?
I am starving, honestly. My food delivered like an hour ago and I did not grab it. But it is a shrimp udon dish and chicken karage. So Japanese.
Nice. Well,
yeah.
I hope you're enjoying it. Thank you for doing that. I usually get screamed at whenever I eat on the show. People don't like it, so
I was getting some show food requests. Yes. So
he was respectful. He was muted. He wasn't talking with his mouth full. Travis. Very
Cadmus is here. Cadmus, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from the Bay Area.
Calling from the Bay Area. What do you want to talk about on the show?
So my take was that I think Jack needs to take responsibility for the early departure of Summit and the overall collapse of Cloud9. I specifically think that it's really unfair for a lot of the other players and staff on Cloud9 to be bearing the brunt of the failures, whether it's people dogging on Summit and his play, whether it's people blaming Winsome or talking about Isles, or that Fudge was a mid laner, or blaming Max Waldo, which I think was who's probably the person that took the biggest blame, especially when it came to their drafts. I think that we don't have complete information about what has happened with C9, and thus it falls on the responsibility of the owner and the manager of the team to accept responsibility and to answer questions, because I feel like there's a lot that we don't know. And with Summit leaving after just getting MVP, and then Perks leaving just before, that Jack has bungled 2 major star acquisitions in a row, and he doesn't deserve the benefit of the doubt.
What would you like to see from Jack specifically?
I would like, I think my ideal scenario would be I would like him to do a press conference and take questions from reporters, is probably what I think would be the best case scenario. You know, I think the single video that we got after LS was removed, or after LS resigned, whatever happened with that, is not something that's very overproduced, is not something that I think is very transparent. You know, I think, for example, when the Cleveland Browns acquired Deshaun Watson, you know, their owners had to do a press conference and had to answer questions from reporters and take some level of ownership on that issue. And I think that Jack should do something similar, because I think the fans and the wider community are owed that type of transparency.
Okay.
Mark, I can't speak to this because people will just be like, haha, he said press conference. Travis likes press conferences. So what do you think?
I don't know. Mo sounded like he was ready to go.
Well, I'll just say, think just one thing to preface, like I won't, I guess, like defend C9. I don't want to sound like I'm coming off as that, or defend Jack, because I think your point about him, I guess, just answering some questions to fans is fine, but sometimes it's actually in the benefit of both Summit and maybe even LS that some questions aren't answered. I think that it shouldn't always be viewed as like, oh, the player leaving, it's bungled. Oh man, it's Jack's fault. Like, because from Jack's perspective, he's the CEO, right? He's doing things that are best for the org, in his perspective, right? Maybe the fans might not always understand that, but in doing that, there might be some questions that, if answered, could maybe make Summit look really bad, or make LS look bad, like, and potentially harm their careers, right? So that's just something to keep in mind when you want like full transparency about things from people. Like, that kind of transparency might actually hurt the careers of other people, you know? And it's out of respect for them sometimes. Like, that might be why, you know, you don't always get that level of transparency as a fan that you want from, you know, from organizations, from people who were kicked from different teams and stuff like that. But that's just my take. I'm not, you know, I'm not saying that's fully the case for C9, but I'm just saying it's something to keep in mind when you want answers for a lot of things from orgs.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
So this isn't my point. I mean, I personally would, in general, when it comes to sports issues, I tend to place a lot of responsibility on the owner, because that's the common trend. You know, that's the common through line between a lot of these different issues, whether it was, you know, Perks, or whether it's now Summit and LS and things like that. But I'm well aware that it could also not make players look good. It probably wouldn't make the whole organization look good, but that's kind of besides the point, I think, is that right now, when we're talking about C9 and what went wrong and what they need to do, is that we simply have incomplete information. We have a total lack of what was going on behind the scenes. You know, we don't know. It's a mystery who is responsible for C9's drafts, for example, because, you know, on paper, it's sort of the coach, but we also know that players, you know, take a big part in deciding picks, that there's this sort of like consensus, but we don't know where that consensus is derived from at all. There's all this incomplete information, and that leads to people pointing sporadic blame at different players, at different people on staff, and that's not fair to any of them. For there to be this rampant speculation about them, and about their play and about their job. There are people that have takes that say, oh, Max Waldo doesn't deserve to be a good coach. Well, we have no idea how to actually evaluate Max's job because we have no idea what was going on behind the scenes. And so that's where I really think the transparency is kind of needed, not necessarily because it's definitively going to protect these players and protect the staff, but so that we actually know what's going wrong or what is the issue, and we can actually evaluate whether or not C9's decisions in doing this roster swap role swap fudging.
I just want to cut in because I feel like we're kind of rehashing kind of where the original take was. But I do want to say that I'm a little surprised by Twitch chat's reaction to this, which is to generally feel like I see a lot of people saying like this is nobody's business. This is like very like a very entitled take or something like that. This is pretty standard in traditional sports, and it's not even that unusual in esports. The best example of this is like you had a lot of controversy a year ago when Team Liquid had Alfari benched and Jat left, and there was a whole lot of stuff that went on there. And TL actually did do a press conference and came out and like answered questions from media folks, and they were like, Steve did not explain everything that went on behind the scenes, right? He like found that line between disclosing the things that he thought could be disclosed and kind of dodging the questions where he didn't want to throw Alfari or Jat or somebody under the bus. But I think it was still appreciated by folks. And so like, I don't like, again, I get it. I'm a media person. Like I'm going to veer more on the idea of like, let's do something. But like, I don't think it's that crazy that fans are a little disappointed that the only thing that we've gotten, only communication we've gotten out of anybody so far is like that one video, which did not go over very well. And hopefully we'll see more transparency and more communication in the video that they're planning on talking about with the roster changes. But like, I'm surprised that people think that this is so wild of a take. Now, I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mark.
No, you can keep going.
I was just gonna say like. Well, no, I'm going to go. I've got some other Summit stuff to talk about on this topic. So if you have something.
I was going to say, we're still in the middle of all the changes. So it's a little preemptive, I think, to call for this because Summit's gone, yes, and Winsome and Isles are gone, but they haven't formally announced the Sven thing, the Fudge thing, and the presumed Jensen thing. Like those are all leaked through other sources or whatever. And hopefully when those are announced, they do a nice video that includes a sit down and hopefully comes across more authentically like you're asking for. It doesn't feel like they're reading quite off a script, where they say why these changes are made. And they don't, to your point, Travis, they don't have to be super like transparent. To Mo's point, they don't need to be like, yeah, we wanted to work with Summit, but he never fucking changed his champ pool and he was being a dick to people. Like you can find a way to toe the line between, putting players down and being like, hey, the team was really struggling. We couldn't find identity toward the end of the split that worked, and it became apparent that a change was needed because like the team was not progressing at all anymore. And like maybe you can find a way to word it, and then like explain why you're making these changes or whatever. And so that's because they haven't announced the new players yet. There's still some hope for Cadmus that we will get that transparency a little bit, or at least some answers. But if they just kind of put out another tweet like this, except now saying the players joining. I think then fans have a right to be like,
they tweeted that they were going to have more information coming out, but I do think people will be disappointed.
Oh, yeah, there's a tweet underneath. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I do think people will be disappointed if the only thing they do is kind of a rehash of the previous video.
Yeah.
So.
I think press conferences in general should just be more normalized in esports, and not like the crappy ones with players after a win or a loss. And not that those are bad, but just like,
I mean, they're not great.
They're not great, but
I think a press conference when you are like, here's our new roster. We have a press conference at the start of the split with, like, TSM did that one year because Gillette made them, and it was like a sponsored activation. And so, and I don't even, like, honestly, fuck it. Like, sell your media day. I don't give a shit. I will do press conference or interview with your players in front of some big banner that has some sponsor. Hopefully not competing with mine, but whatever. I'll make it work. But it's it is. I agree with you. It's a good idea to try to do more of that stuff.
Yeah, I think like you can just do it however you want. Like just get on a Skype call with like 8 people. Don't even need to like stream it, but like just like field questions, because I feel like what the problem with like the announcement videos is that like they tell their story very clearly, and people are like, wait, but what about X, Y, and Z? And they're like, we're not going to address those. And like, press conferences at least give you the chance to be like, hey, but what about those things? A little bit.
Well, they oftentimes feel more real too, because you're going to get more off the cuff conversations and.
Yep.
The other thing I want to talk about while we're on the topic of this is that I do think the Summit stuff is fascinating because it is. I think him leaving to Korea is continuing the schism that is in our league right now between like the 5 teams that want to spend and the 5 teams that don't, roughly 5 and 5.
Well, we
what
also
I heard.
Sorry. Just so you know, the final caller is going to challenge you on Summit leaving being a bad thing. So I don't know if that ties into what you're about to say or not, but
I'll just say it now so that we can have the further context for the conversation, and if she wants if she's listening and wants to use this information. So what I heard was Summit, like C9 tried to shop Summit around. And initially it was like, here, with a buyout, MVP top laner, who wants him? Then eventually nobody was biting, like no team was interested in paying a buyout. So then it became, all right, who wants Summit? What if there's no buyout? Does anybody want Summit? But supposedly his salary was, the number I heard was $900K. And in some cases, that is not too far off from the total salary of some of these bottom tier teams. And so then it was just like, okay, well, those teams aren't going to take him. And again, like kind of what Revenge was saying earlier about these top teams, like is 100T going to go swap out someday for Summit or whatever? So you end up in a situation where like nobody ends up wanting this player because four of the top, one of them is a top team, and none of the other 4 top teams want him, and then none of the bottom 5 can afford him. And there was some questions. Obviously, he didn't do a good job of marketing himself in the playoffs. So this is what ends up happening, And I don't think that there's necessarily any fingers to point at. Like I am not, even as I decry the lack of Summit staying here after getting MVP, like I think it is more our system has failed, right? Where you have some teams that are so obsessed with like import players, you have some teams that are willing to spend way more than other teams. You then have those players, if they wash out, don't have a place to go because their expectations should be that I'm going to be able to get close to $1 million. It's like you have a lot of these players who, I was talking to somebody who works with one of the teams who's just like, there's a lot of players that will just not play if they're not getting $500,000 or $1 million. They're just like, I'll just take a year off or something. And so it's just a very weird system that we have right now. And the league feels kind of broken because all these different like kind of market dynamics, maybe is the best word for it, all compete to create situations where you can have a player come over from Korea. How much time, Mark, did you guys spend fucking hyping this guy up on the desk and investing into storyline building? And there's interviews that were done with him that myself did, that Riot did, that all this stuff, and now he's just gone. And so Nicole will call in a second here and tell us why I'm wrong, and I'm happy to have the conversation. But I don't know, it's interesting.
Yeah, we're already 10 minutes over, so we got to go faster. Revenge, why don't you give your job to Summit?
Yeah, let me just hit my guy up. Okay. Maybe we can. Maybe I'll go like Peter Zhang agent style, and I'll be like, yo, I'll take 450K. You can play at IMT.
You have to change your name to Revenge.
Yeah. But yeah, that's.
Papa Smithy wants to know from me how much the highest paid player in the league makes for context, and I would say, Papa Smithy, I'm sure you have that information. I don't know why you need to ask me for it. Just go.
Because people in chat were saying like 900K for Summit. What the fuck? And like, there's a lot of players north of $1 million. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Not like ass loads, but like it's not like Summit's the most paid player in the league.
Right. But it is a little surprising given that like he's not Perks or something. You know what I mean? Like he came over here and kind of had to build the name for himself, and so it's, I don't know, it's kind of surprising how much was normally you have to work a little bit to get to that point. All right. Cadmus, thank you for the call. Anything you want to shout out before we go on to our next caller?
Shout out to Alienware. Shout out to Revenge, best native NA top laner. And yeah, that's all.
Thank you so much for the call. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks, man.
All right. We're in for our last caller. Nicole is here. Nicole, where are you calling from?
Calgary, Canada.
Calgary, Canada. Welcome back to the show. It's been a bit.
Yeah, it has.
Okay, so tell me why I'm wrong.
Okay, so basically, like, my point is you were saying, like, oh, Summit winning MVP and then leaving is, like, super bad for the league. But then, like, in order to avoid that, it's either, like, okay, C9 either doesn't pick up Summit at the beginning of the year, or 2, C9 keeps Summit for, like, at least, like, the remainder of the year. And, like, I think C9 going for Summit and, like, just LCS teams who have the ability to go for, like, huge import players. Like, I'm not a huge fan of, like, all imports, but, like, big name players like Summit on, like, C9, I think that's beneficial to the league. It brought in a bunch of hype. We can test our own players against them, right? And then also to the point of, okay, well, why don't C9 just keep Summit? Something, like, clearly wasn't working, obviously. I don't think C9 is, like, super stupid with their moves. I think they would have really tried to get something going with Summit, just given, like, how much, like, he brought to their brand in spring and, like, how much he was popping off in spring. And just the fact that you said, like, no other teams really wanted to pick him up is, like, another red flag where it's like, okay, something must have been really, really bad. And I would rather have C9 do what they think is right for their roster in order to win in summer than try to hang on to Summit so that you don't get this, like, oh, our MVP is leaving after one split, like, kind of arc that you're arguing for.
There's a couple things here. So one, I don't know if Summit was a big name before he came over here. I feel like LS hyped him up and, like, people were really excited about him as a signing, but, like, when I think big names, I think like Perks, Alfari, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not trying to dog on Summit, but, like,
well, because you don't watch LCK.
No, I know. Look,
and Summit hadn't been to an international tournament. When would you have heard of him?
No, but that's my point, Mark, is, like, it is not just me, like, it is a lot of people who, and it's not like I hadn't heard of it, but it is, do you honestly think Summit was a big name before he came over here?
I don't think Nicole meant big name like big superstar that everyone has 1 million Twitter followers. I think big name is in, like, people respected this guy and thought he was good.
I don't know. I think there was a small subset of people who knew who he was, but a tiny fraction of the North American audience.
Yeah, but that's not the point. The point is that if you're trying to sign people who you think are legitimately good and can win you a title and you have the resources to do it, shouldn't you do it? I think that's the point she's making.
Okay. Revenge, do you want to get in here before I talk a little bit more?
I mostly agree with what you said. I think C9 releasing him was definitely for a reason, right? Like, I think though, before you get into it, Travis, I think to Travis's point is just about, signing someone and then having them leave. That's the reason it's damaging and stuff, is just, it does feel bad for the league in the sense that you have somebody who's being, given storylines and all of that stuff, and then he's just gone. I think, although I do agree with you that if C9 is looking to win, then they should do everything that they can to win, similar to the reason why they signed Summit in the first place, right? I think it just overall does suck for the league. There's no arguing that. I think the positives you mentioned are that doesn't take away from the positives you mentioned of him being in the league, like leveling up, seeing how other, like, our top laners, or myself included, play against him, and all of that. I definitely agree that those are positives, but I guess the question that I now have is, does the negative of having someone like him come and then just leave outweigh the positives of that you mentioned? That I don't know, or I haven't thought about that much.
So, here's where I will agree with you, Nicole. I agree with you that like C9 should not have, if Summit was not working out and they felt like this wasn't a good situation, that they should have definitely said goodbye to Summit. I think where I look at the problem is before we even get to where you're talking about, right? Which is you're like, well, they should have signed him, and then if he didn't work out, they should be willing to get rid of him. I think there's a couple bigger systemic issues here, which are, one, should they have been willing to sign him for the rate that he was signed for? Like, should Summit have been paid $900K to come over here? Because if we had a situation, and I say this with revenge in front of me, and I know players want to make good money, but if we had a situation where players were paid less and you had way less of a spread, and for instance, you have a situation where like one of the top teams right now is paying like 5x in salary what the bottom team is paying. Like if you didn't have a system where you have such a huge spread, perhaps Summit would never have been making 900K. Maybe he would have been making 450. And maybe if he's making 450, then he is more able to get picked up by another team who's willing to take a risk on him because they're like, okay, well, that's much more reasonable. So I think when I look at the issues that are causing such turnover, I don't think of it exclusively as teams are too willing to bring a player in and kick them out. I think of like what causes them to kick them out? What causes them to leave the system? Also, why is it that we need to go get Summit rather than trying to find North American talent? And again, I know North American talent, everybody keeps saying it over and over again, right? But like there is a balance between looking at, well, we didn't make finals this year or we didn't make worlds, and the solution is go find the best talent from outside of the region to bring them in, and looking to develop talent within our own ecosystem. And the more that we can shift closer to finding talent within our own ecosystem and more promoting players from academy and amateur and creating systems and having things like what EG and 100T have built to develop talent on our own, the less likely we need, or the less dependent we will become on bringing over players who very easily and very readily boomerang out of our system back to other regions. And so I look at it as like these are the broader systems. It is not like this kind of like dichotomy of, well, you should either get the player if you can, and then like don't have them if they're not good. You have to look at the broader picture and say like, well, why are we in this system in the first place where we've decided like Jack has to go get a player like Summit, and then we've decided nobody can pick up Summit whenever he leaves.
Can I quickly add to this?
Yeah.
Because like you said, like, oh yeah, like we should be developing our NA talent, and I love like developing NA talent and seeing like Danny and JoJo succeed. Like that is so exciting. But do you think that storyline would have had the same, like, I guess, hype around it if the rest of the league was NA talent as well? I really don't think so. Because then it's NA talent shitting on NA talent instead of NA talent shitting on imports. Like that's so much cooler, So like to say, oh yeah, like maybe we should be looking. I think how it should work is like top tier players. If you're able to get a top tier import, like Summit was considered at the beginning of the year, you should really go for that. Because I think like having that up against like NA talent to see whether that NA talent, can stand up to that is really cool. Like it's the mid-tier imports that I have a like issue with over NA talent that could develop. But like, I don't know, just in this situation, I think, yeah, bringing like Summit over and just those top tier imports over like is, I guess, like beneficial to the league.
To answer your question, your initial thing, which is like the import situation right now builds storylines where you can have EG bring in these players, and it's very exciting. There was a time in this league where the league was very popular and did not have a single player from another region competing in it. And so like, yeah, it is cool. I do like the storyline, and it is fun to be like, oh, look what EG was able to build. But like, you get different storylines in situations where you don't have players that are in situations where you don't throw out half the league year over year, or where you don't spend a bunch of money to have a player compete for 1 year and then have them leave, like Perks and Alfari and Sword Art, and half a split or one split with Summit. So I don't think, again, like I don't, and I'm not arguing for a world where like players are not able to come over. But I do kind of wish that we never had this like grandfathered system, because I think the original designers of the import rule, the fabled import rule, had this vision of you got 3 players that are North American, and then you got 2 players that are from another region, and you know, when we end up in a situation where like you could have had a finals here where it was like TL versus 100T and there's just no North American players there, it's not the best, I think.
Here's where I think some of the issues lies, not just the importing stuff, but also like, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe they did do really good due diligence or something, or that it was just a total crapshoot that these 5 players didn't work out to the point that you have to blow it up mid-split. But I often wonder if teams really do like talk to Summit's former teammates to get like his shortcomings and not just trust their own eyes, and like really talk to people, because I don't know how often teams always do stuff like that. And I would like if like what could have been so bad that you had to blow it up mid-split, that you couldn't have seen coming. What?
You mean mid-year?
Yeah, mid-year, excuse me, that you couldn't have seen coming with a little bit more like research or something. Or like, you know, I don't know. That's how I feel about a lot of things that change mid-split, is you probably could have seen that problem coming, and it's not like it just came out of fucking left field.
I guess to add one thing, I do think that I guess I agree with what Nicole said about having certain imports get, you know, shit on, for example, by NA players. I think that does make great storylines, but I do think, Travis, to your point about, you know, there was a time where there was no imports and there were like different kinds of storylines because people retain in the league longer. I think that's something that I hope that will come back, where regardless of whether the player or not, well, my issue is I think that that's kind of faltered even so that there are still players retained in the league and there's not storylines being built for them. Like I think that's kind of a bigger issue I see too. I think while imports leaving the league fast does hurt that, I think that it's still an issue regardless, from Riot's side, that I wish that it was just done better. I don't know how exactly. I'm not the best person to ask on giving the proper solutions for that, but I don't know if narratives and storylines are faltering right now only because imports are coming and leaving after a year. I think that hurts it, but it's not the biggest reason for me.
I don't necessarily think that it's the only reason or the biggest reason. I do think that it's a huge reason why viewership is slumping. I think it is the biggest reason why viewership is slumping. And I don't necessarily say like imports exclusively coming in and out, but like players coming in and out of the league, huge roster turnover, and like imports I think are in a lot of cases the most likely to do this like kind of boomerang, right? Because they're just way more likely to be like, fuck it, I'll just go back and play for Vitality than end up on a different team, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that makes sense too, though. Yeah.
Raincloud says viewership is slumping because the quality of play is bad. People love to say that, and then whenever you go survey people, that's not why they say they're not watching. People, I don't think the average LCS viewer could tell you what is good and isn't good play.
Well, they can if they listen to co-streamers tell them.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. That's the only time that they're doing it, is because they're like, well, I heard X person say that this player's dog shit. So, like, it is, I think, very, very inaccurate to try to pretend that, imagine a world where, like, North America played in, like, a silo and people weren't really watching all these other regions and there were no co-streamers or whatever. Like, people would just watch. Like, there are other regions that perform worse than us that have great viewership. And it's because people care about their players and their storylines, and not because it's, you know, I like to think we are better than Brazil. Brazil still gets great viewership, and I think has recently overtaken LCS viewership, quite frankly, based off of a couple things that I've seen. So, yeah. Anyway, Nicole, I'm sorry we disagree on this. I don't think it's entirely wrong what you're saying. I just think I am trying to look at a broader picture, and maybe that's where we disagree. But anything you want to shout out before we wrap up the show?
Shout out Raz if he's still in the chat.
He got timed out. Unfortunately, he was spamming.
Oh, he went to the university I'm going to, so like that's kind of cool.
Oh, well, I'll untime him out because so that he can say something.
Hey, Travis, time this out. System.
Sorry, Nicole, you were saying?
Yo, Raz. Just a shout out to Raz because he used to go to the university I'm attending. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for the call, and we'll catch you next time.
All right,
shout out to Raz. He also twerks, just if you didn't know.
So true. Okay, so where are we at? Okay, Revenge, what do you want to shout out?
Let me think. Gosh, I was listening to everyone else shout out things that I now do not even know what to shout out.
Shout out your new 80 carry.
Oh yeah. Shout out my new 80 carry. Won't name them, but shouting them out. Shouting out my new jungler as well, who I will also not name. Huge shout outs to them. They're probably grinding right now, getting ready for the season. Really proud of them. But yeah, no, shout out to you guys. Thanks for having me on today. It was really fun. Shout out to all the viewers who came and asked questions. Maybe I was a bit harsh on some of you, but it was still fun. I enjoyed, at least hopefully I gave a good POV on some things, whether that was from like just a player perspective or maybe how like orgs think on like the inside. Hopefully that was actually helpful, but yeah.
Shout out to Latagarus who subbed 10 minutes ago or 16 minutes ago and said, open this on mobile in the middle of the take. Feel like it's the middle of a serious convo. It's been a lot of serious convos tonight. Mark, I'm seeing you and Raz on Twitter right now, so I don't. You guys
I need to shout out you, asshole. You don't let me show my cat. You don't let me spam system in Twitch chat. You don't let me have any fucking fun on this show. This show sucks.
So see you next week.
Yeah, I'll be back.
Mark, I just had to figure out a different way to transfer money to you. Okay. I feel like it makes sense for you to do the show. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to plug?
No. Shout out Mo for coming on. It was a really good episode. I don't think you're that harsh on anyone. I think you can go even harder next time.
There were a couple people where these poor nervous people call in to give their take in front of 1,400 people, and
I saw
Raz. You said, or not? I don't know why. Fucking Raz talking about. You said, Revenge, that what did you say? You said somebody's take was just bizarre. I think is what you're like. You're like, I think it's just bizarre.
Well, no, okay. Like some of the people were talking, and I could not laugh. I would just, yeah, I don't know. I hope my facial expressions weren't too harsh on them. I guess.
See, that's why I don't think you went too hard, because I could see how much more. Not frustrated, but more ridiculous you thought the takes were than you stated.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always when a fan speaks from their POV and they're like talking about what like they think an org should do. It's like kind of yelling at the clouds, like yeah, change closer and Huhi and 100 Thieves will be top team. It's like, man, it's just so out of touch. It's like no blame to that guy. Like he was a nice chatter and everything, but it's just like I wish they could understand a bit more the inside and like then they would understand how out of touch their take is, but they just won't. So it's like
people can only know what they have access to, and like we're all privy to additional context and we try to share it the best that we can, but it's like it's always going to be difficult. Sometimes it just seems from the outside perspective of like, why doesn't this org just do X thing? Like that would just solve it, like just sign this player or do this thing. And so I like it's I mean, Mark went off on a tangent earlier this year about how like fans should feel upset about certain things even if they don't have the context because they don't have the context. So I don't know.
I mean, that was less about saying who people should replace or not, more like, you know.
Either way,
team should give them a reason to give a fuck about their org more than anything.
That's true too.
Yeah. All right. For my shout out, so tomorrow with Emily, I am recording a show called Rift Reaction that will be out on Wednesday. I want to make sure I haven't got an email that we got any kind of delay or cancellation, but I don't. So I think I can tentatively say that supposedly we are interviewing Joe Marsh tomorrow for the show. And so if you want to hear us talk to Joe Marsh ahead of MSI, we'll have him on the show, so go listen to that. Other than that, shout out to Mark, who I'm sure is jet lagged but still made it on. Really appreciate it. Shout out to Revenge for coming on. That was super cool to have you on. And that's the show, everyone. We'll catch you next time.